Okay, fantastic. Well, let's get started. Firstly, welcome everyone. We're really looking forward to sharing some of our great learnings, I guess, we've seen from the onboarding space with you all today. But I guess before we get started, just some basic housekeeping. You're all on mute at the moment. So if you've got any questions, just put those through on the chat panel on the right of the screen, and we'll have some time at the end to come through to those. Um, just to let you know too, we are recording this session. So if you would like, we can send you a copy of this after the session and you can show it to friends, colleagues, family, whoever you want to show it to. So I guess the question is, who are we? So I'm Chris speaking, and I head up the customer success efforts for Enboarder in EMEA. Really making sure that all of our customers are getting some great engaging experiences for all of their employees. And we've got Steve as well.
Hi guys, so my name's Steve and I'm responsible for all of Enboarder's commercial activity within the EMEA region.
Perfect. So in terms of the agenda for the session, we're going to kick off with Steve running through some of the interesting insights that we're seeing around the importance of having that strong onboarding program. Then I'll deep dive into an example of one of our clients, oOh!media. We've really enjoyed watching their transformation, I guess, in their process over the last couple of years. So some really good learnings that we can give you from that. Then Steve's going to run through a bit more detail about how Enboarder actually works. And I guess the fun part is you'll all actually get to experience an onboarding experience live on your phones. So make sure that you've got your phone handy because you'll definitely be involved in the process as we go through. And then we'll finish off with some Q&A as well. So to kick off, I'll pass over to Steve.
Cool. Okay, so let's start with some industry research. And this is some research that we pulled from a fairly recent Bersin study by Deloitte on why onboarding is so important. And we know that it's something that is becoming more talked about. We know it's something that's becoming more of a priority within the kind of HR and talent matrix. But some data to sit behind that. So 4% of new hires leave their job after a disastrous first day. 22% of staff turnovers can occur within the first 45 days of employment, and 90% of new hires decide whether or not they'll stay or leave within their first 6 months of employment. Similarly, when it comes to executives and senior hires, companies have a 50% failure rate in retention. The cost of losing an employee in the first year is at least 3 times that of the employee's salary. And so to us, that suggests that if you're not really nailing your first impression and your onboarding experience, then all of these potential negatives are possibilities. So around onboarding and talent attraction, then onboarding really is the final stage of the talent acquisition process and the first stage of the employee experience. Yet only 27% of new hires receive calls from their hiring manager before they start on day one. And only 20% of companies introduce the team and communicate goals before day one. However, and this is the kind of counterintuitive bit, onboarding has actually dropped from being a top 5 recruiting technology investment for employees in 2017 and 2018. We feel as though there's a fairly obvious disconnect there then.
Perfect. So, I mean, that's the problem we're trying to solve, I guess we could look at. And it's crazy how that research is really seen in so many of our clients we work with. So now we wanted to move more into an example of a company that's doing this really well. As I mentioned, oOh!media. So they're actually based in Australia, but we thought we'd start off with a quick video from their head of talent, Alana Bennett.
There was no experience process. It was totally left up to the device of the manager. Now, we're all HR professionals. We know typically how this story ends. It's high variability, inconsistency, and in a lot of cases, it's the blind leading the blind. So therefore, when, as Brent mentioned, that I was had started, I met with Brent, I had designed this onboarding process from kind of literally before, that 30-day mark before someone started, all the way up to the end of that 12 months. Now, I have this firm belief that recruitment for me is a bit like dating. So, we meet someone, we go on a couple of dates, we slowly start to fall in love with each other. And then it's like we say, come on, let's move in. This is really exciting. So everyone's like, yeah, we're packing boxes, we're getting, a truck ready. But actually we don't hear from them until like the moving in day. Now, that just seems perversely weird to me. And that's what onboarding is like in a lot of businesses, right? We date this person through the recruitment process. We go, we really like you. We offer you a job, but actually we don't really talk to you again until you start. And let's say on average, that's about 4 weeks. Now, in a relationship, I'd be going, I'm not moving in with that person. That is weird. So why is that dissimilar then from a recruitment process? You know, why should we not expect that our employer would want to keep in touch with us up until, you know, before we start? So for us, fundamentally, that was the reason why we had to change. We were absolutely committed to ensuring that our people were connected with us and our brand and our business and our story from the day that they signed that employment contract to the day that they set foot in our office on day one.
I guess, like many of you, I'm sure what you just heard is quite a familiar feeling. You kind of know what the process is that you want to be putting forward, or I guess at least you know what it should be. But there's perhaps been no formal process in place, or, you know, people just aren't really on board with what you're trying to achieve. But I guess the good thing is, don't worry, is you're not alone. We see this constantly as something that it's an evolving process. And I guess the thing here is, you know, Alana mentioned there about, she kind of started with a blank piece of paper. And I guess the good thing is rather than looking at this like it's a problem, it's looking at this like it's an opportunity. So were able to really build something from scratch. What they started to look at was more of a process around this, because they had the ideas, but they hadn't actually mapped out what it looked like. So through looking at some of the existing processes, speaking with new hires, with managers and other departments, as well as combining a lot of other industry research, put together this process map. So it's looking at kicking off when that verbal offer was made, and then it's looking at incorporating those frequent touch points throughout the process. The main area that they were trying to solve for was really after that offer is signed up until the first day. So Alana put that link there about the dating analogy. So it was really something they found where, you know, it was a big gap they were finding. But then it didn't stop there. It was, okay, after they start, how do we still continue to have things at the first week, the 3, 6, 12 month mark, really as a way to gain feedback on what people were finding about the experience, rather than just waiting for that 6 or 12 month pulse survey or employee voice check-in to get the results. Because by that time, it's really a bit too late to be able to do anything practical if there are any issues. So having these survey points was able to help get some much more timely feedback. And I guess it goes to the next part around what were trying to solve for. So what they found is they had a really high investment in the recruitment process. And I think this is quite common for a lot of companies, and yourselves probably included, because you've got to be very competitive in the catchphrase, the war for talent. But what they were finding from the employee feedback was that there was a big disconnect from that high touch experience of the interview process, the talent attraction strategies, to what was actually happening once the contract was signed. And off the back of this, they wanted that high engagement to remain after the contract was signed. Because I think we all know that feeling, and probably with candidates as well, when you are looking for a new job and you've just signed that contract, you are so excited and you're so motivated, and you're talking to friends and family, and you're a really big advocate. And so what they were trying to solve was that drop in motivation and in engagement, and also to remove any of that anxiety or hesitation that might have been in their minds after they'd signed the offer. Then this led to the, they had everything they wanted to know, and they had the process mapped. They knew why it was important, but they really had to then explore how they could actually bring this to life. And this is really where us as Enboarder came in. So I'll hand back over to Steve.
Cool, thanks, Chris. So what we'll do now is actually jump over into Enboarder, the system itself, and you'll see that this has been branded as oOh!media, and what we'll get the opportunity to do now is actually take a look at the exact experiences that they've defined and designed for their new hires. So this is Enboarder. There's a rail that runs down the left-hand side that has things like a dashboard menu, some reporting functionality, as well as things like training and FAQs. there's a settings menu where you can do configuration. The Add New People button is where you put people into Onboarder, and you do that through an integration with your ATS or through a manual upload or through a host of other ways that we can kind of capture data. And once your new hires are in the system at the end of the hiring process, and once they've accepted their offer, they travel down the pipe and into a workflow. And O have created different workflows based on the diversity of their own hiring. So for example, they've got a completely different workflow that they've designed for their IT hires than they do for their marketing hires. They've got another process and another experience entirely for their finance hires, knowing that these different people require different levels of engagement, different things they need to learn or become engaged with before day one. The system then knows which workflow to show them based on how they're categorized within the ATS. I'm going to show you an empty one first, and to do that I'll drag in a new workflow. We'll just call it test. We'll add some really simple criteria, and then we'll click save. And to describe an empty workflow for you, and this again will kind of link back to some of what Alana was talking about around engaging candidates before day one. So what we're looking at is an empty workflow. And that white line running from left to right is time, with that white dot being the start date. So that's your new hire's first day. What that means is anything that O build to the left of that white dot are communications that will trigger before day one. So think between offer stage and day one, and then anything they build after the white dot are communications that will trigger then once that new hire is joined. The area above the line is what we call the manager area, and that's where we'll build communications for the hiring manager or other internal stakeholders like the buddy, HR, payroll, or IT. Again, you can include who you like within that section. And below the line is the employee area where we build communications for the employee. You do that using sequences and modules. Sequences, again, all drag and drop, determine when a communication is sent, and modules determine what those communications look like. And so you might start your process saying, welcome to oMedia. And that might be with a communication that is sent 28 days before day one to all new hires. You might then add something for the hiring manager, letting them know that your new hire starts soon. And rather than have that happen at a specific time, we could maybe choose for that to happen after a sequence that we're sending to a new hire. So this is a real life example from O. You get the picture of how you then start to build in a cadence of communication before, during, and after day one. And to show you what that looks like in real life, I'm going to jump out of the test workflow and into this marketing hires demo one. And you can see that the whole thing scrolls to the right and becomes a workflow communication tool where O have built in various different touch points for new hire and hiring manager, leading from 28 days before day one up until the first day, which you can see is signified by the white dot. And that's things like new hire setups, introduction to buddy, technology requests, all of those challenges or communications challenges that most organizations will have when they think about onboarding. Beyond day one, you'll see that they've also built some things like week one and month one checklists for hiring managers, as well as some simple surveys and check-ins that they automatically distribute to their new hires to get sense checks of how happy and engaged their new hires are. Workflows are fully customizable. This is just an example of O's, but what we'll focus on is these first two sequences, one for the new hire and one for the hiring manager. Now, Onboarder comes with different modules. There are 9 different modules in total. They've each been designed to do a different thing. You can design as many versions of each as you like, and they're all stored within a library. We're going to build one from scratch, and this is just a rebuild of one of those, and it's called a content page. A content page, as the name would suggest, is a really simple way of building or sending content like images and videos out to new hires. So this one is called Welcome to O. And you'll see that I've got these components in the top left that I can add to start to design the page itself. And so I might use an image of O's office, which I can upload to the content page. I might decide also to add some text, just while that's uploading. I've actually got some text pre-written on this little online notepad, which I'll just copy and paste in rather than type it out from scratch. They also use what we call dynamic tokens, meaning you can personalize each page so that it pulls through things like the new hire's name and their hiring manager's name. So it makes it feel like a super personalized experience. They also like to share a video with their new hires before day one. which they can do using this video they have uploaded on YouTube, where you can copy the URL, drop it into the page, and it will be delivered as part of Onboarder. So it all looks and feels really, really smooth. You can see that that's now there. So there are a couple of other modules within these sequences. The next one is an embed module, and it's a company benefits portal, and the one after that is a form called A Bit About You. So the other modules enable you to do things like embed third-party content, create forms, questionnaires, surveys, that kind of thing, send out checklists to hiring managers to ensure that they've done all of the things that they need to do for their new hires after maybe the first week, as well as some other kind of slightly smarter pieces of technology and functionality that we can go into more detail later. But for now, what I'd like to do is show you what this all looks like in real life and on your phone. So to jump back into the presentation itself, if you all have your phones with you and don't mind texting your first name to the number that you see on the screen now, you'll receive those two sequences that we've just looked at. And whilst we didn't go into detail of them in the back office, it would be great to show you what that looks like in real life for their new hires. The sequences will fire one after the other. So the first one that you'll receive once you've clicked send is one that's addressed to the new hire, and it will show you that content page. It will show you the second module, which is embed, and then it will show you a form. And within that form, you don't need to fill the whole thing out, but maybe fill out a couple of questions and then click submit. And then your role will change and you'll be the hiring manager, and you'll get to see Onboarder from the other side as if you were a hiring manager, and it will give you some instructions on how to think about engaging your new hire. I'll give everyone a second to do that or to write that number down. Remember, it's just your first name that you need to send. If you're dialing in from overseas, use +44 instead of 0, and that should then work.
Perfect. So while you're all receiving those, which is kind of exciting, we thought we would show you what an example of what they're actually sending, and then actually show you some of the results that O have gained from using this new process. So it's pretty substantial, like you can see here. These three areas are looking at the check-in. So you've got your week 1, month 1, and month 3. And what you can see is some pretty out of this world results. New hires love the experience, and I mean the NPS scores are ridiculous. And I mean this blew O away. They were expecting people to enjoy it, but they weren't thinking that it would be this good. And I think a lot of the feedback was really showing that although they mightn't have had the most comprehensive process with the most advanced, fancy content, a lot of the new hires had never received anything before. So other companies they were at, there really was nothing. And so all of a sudden they're receiving this nurturing program where they're feeling engaged. They feel like they are part of the team. They feel like they've been looked after. And I guess it's really a testament to, I guess, O's innovation in what they were trying to achieve, the forward-thinking nature of what they were doing. I mean, these results are amazing. And what we've seen from this is a lot of awards have actually been given to O based on this. So they've had recognition from the wider industry. They've also had Alana was speaking at the Onboarding 2025 conference in New York, where she was speaking with some huge companies who were all struggling with the same thing. And they've all now started kind of leaning on her to get any assistance they can with building out some amazing experiences.
Cool. So yeah, a couple of questions that we often get asked are which ATSs do we integrate with? And the answer very simply is all of them. We've got some fairly simple ways of moving data from an ATS to Onboarder in order to trigger a workflow. There's no additional work for the recruiter in this instance, it's just a continuation of the process. Another thing that we're often asked about is implementation. So how long does it take to get Onboarder up and running? And the average time is 4 weeks, although some are less, some are more. It really depends on how complex your workflows are and how readily available the content that you want included in them is. Another big topic is GDPR. We're fully compliant. If you're interested in seeing things like the locations of our servers, as well as how we're managed from a DR standpoint, then we have some technology and security documents we can send you. Another question is often around data and insight. So the reporting center that I kind of very briefly showed you on that left-hand rail has got a full history of all data and insights gathered within Enboarder. And that might be something like responses to certain forms, be that technology requests or otherwise. And indeed things like survey results. So one of the things that we usually recommend our clients do is survey their new hires after, say, a week in role, asking them how welcome they feel, asking them how comfortable they are in, the kind of KPIs of their job and what have you. And all of those kind of answers are stored within that reporting center. And yeah, as Chris mentioned, interestingly, the use cases for Enboarder actually go way beyond just onboarding. If you think more broadly about communications challenges that you may kind of encounter as a business, then it's perfectly feasible to start thinking about using Enboarder for things like maternity leave returners, or indeed something like offboarding. So you could create a workflow designed to engage people that maybe have left the organization that you didn't want them to leave, keeping those people engaged and potentially even offering them the chance to return. Similarly, other kind of common challenges like internal, global, or international mobility, you could very feasibly build workflows that help people being moved from location to location settle into their new environments.
Perfect. So, I mean, there's a couple other questions, but I think what we'll do is I might answer those separately. These are, like Steve said, these are really common questions that we get. But I'm more than happy as well, following this, to share the video and the any of the slides you'd like. And also, I guess a big thing is around understanding how O actually went about doing their transformation in their process. So if anyone is interested in kind of hearing from O directly, again, more than happy to put you in touch with